stops. And they got stops and turnovers and baskets.
It was a great NCAA tournament in the last two games. Duke, Carolina on Saturday night, and then this one last night. Absolutely fabulous. We'll do a little more a little later. Seth, stay close by if you would. But I want to go to the NBA next because we are 1 week away from the start of the play-in tournament. And here's where it stands. The Hornets, the Nets, and the Clippers are already locked in to play in the play-in. If Brooklyn stays the 10 seed, bear in mind the Nets would need to win 2 road games just to make the playoffs. So while we might give them the ultimate puncher's chance, they're going to need to punch their way into the dance. Tim Legler is with us here today. As you look at the teams that are likely to be in this play-in tournament, which one right now would you handpick to say will make the deepest playoff run?
There's only one team, really, and I think they're the only team that even has a shot of winning a series if they get out of the play-in, and that's the Nets. There's no question about it because of the firepower of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You've got 2 players that on any given night can be the best player on the floor. So you're talking about penciling in on a bad night, probably close to 60 points between the 2 of them. If they both get hot on the same night, that's almost 80 probably. So, yes, clearly those 2 guys can do that to a defense and potentially win you a series, although I don't necessarily think they're a title threat. They're the only one of the 8 teams that are in the play-in that actually can really put fear into those top seeds.
Yeah, you said they have a puncher's chance, and I think there's never been a fighter with a punch quite like that, right? I mean, that's awfully dangerous. Now, with apologies to our buddy Graziano, who usually gets to do Overreaction Tuesday, we're going to do an NBA version of Overreaction Tuesday, Timmy Legler. If I were to say Giannis has already won the MVP, would that be an overreaction?
Overreaction. He's not going to win the MVP. And he has made a great push here in the second half. I think Luka Doncic also deserves some MVP consideration. But right now, I think it's a 2-man race between Jokic and Embiid. And I think Jokic feels like he's got the momentum to win the award. It will be tight. I don't know what more Joel Embiid can possibly do, but it feels like the momentum now is in the corner of Jokic, but I don't think Giannis is going to win another one.
Okay, that's interesting. He had a huge week last week. We will see. How about the next overreaction? If I were to say, or someone were to say, because I wouldn't, the Nets have no chance to win the championship if they get nothing from Ben Simmons. Would that be an overreaction?
It would be an overreaction because of the word no. Like, no chance with Kevin Durant on your roster. I don't think you can ever say no chance if Kevin Durant is suiting up and he's healthy and he looks as good as he has looked here for the last month since he came back from the injury. So you don't want to rule it out completely. And also, listen, there are teams at the top of the East that've got some issues right now. Sixers aren't playing great. Boston lost Robert Williams. I think Miami's been a little bit up and down this year. And Milwaukee, to me, is the most consistent team. But I don't think any of those teams are on that unbeatable level. So, yeah, for Brooklyn, you don't say no shot if you got KD and Kyrie.
All right, and the third overreaction, I'm going to yield to one of the greatest players of all time. Yesterday, Magic Johnson was here on our show on Get Up, and he revealed something about the Lakers and DeMar Derozan that certainly got a lot of attention all across the landscape. Here's what Magic said.
The blame that he's got to take is the fact that DeRozan ended up in Chicago and not with the Lakers. He has
expand on that thought if you will.
Well, because DeRozan wanted to play for the Lakers, and when I got the call from his agent, I called the Lakers, said, hey, he wants to come home, and DeRozan could have been a Laker instead of a Bull. We could have made that deal, but when Russell and LeBron and them started talking, that's when they nixed that deal and went with Westbrook, and he became a Laker instead of DeRozan.
And so when you hear me say, could you expand on that? That was my way of saying, wait a minute, what? So he said this team would have been a title contender with DeMar Derozan. Is that an overreaction?
I think it is an overreaction from this standpoint because by saying that, you're basically implicating Russell Westbrook and saying that fit was the main thing that derailed their season, and that's just not the case. It was the injuries. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, the aging supporting cast that they added that really didn't put a lot of relevance in the regular season. So there were a ton of factors outside of that decision. Now, they would have been better, and clearly DeRozan would have been a better fit with that group. Well, when you look at all those other issues and factors, Lakers probably wouldn't be eliminated from the play-in. We wouldn't be talking about that. But I do not think we'd be looking at them at the same level as Golden State, Memphis, or Phoenix.
And so the Lakers' season is going to come, I know I speak for everyone when I say, to a merciful end this week. It seems almost impossible to imagine make it into the play-in. And so I guess the question is, for the future, if they're going to try and put a championship team around LeBron James at this point, will that team include the fellow on the right there, Anthony Davis, or will they have to trade him for the pieces they will need to win a title?
They may entertain it. I mean, but here's the thing. It's mind-boggling to think Anthony Davis has 85 DNPs in 3 years, 28 on average per year. That has them second guessing if he's going to be the right guy. But here's what ends up happening. You get into the offseason, Anthony Davis finishes the season healthy, and immediately your mind starts to wander, if you're the Lakers, about what could be if Anthony Davis stays healthy. You feel like we say it about him all the time, but that ultimately is what they're going to buy into. LeBron and AD together won a championship. If you assume health next year and the year that LeBron just had, you think we could do it again. Russell Westbrook isn't going anywhere. He's going to not opt out of $47 million. Very difficult to move that. So really what it comes down to is players 4 through 15. Complete makeover. Younger, more athletic, tougher, better defenders.
That sounds easy. It's easy to say. It's obviously a lot harder to do in a conference where there are a lot of really good young teams. All right, I told you we're 1 week from the play-in. So, Tim, let's look 1 week into the future. 1 week from today, what will the Lakers be doing?
They'll either be on vacation or, more aptly, I think, purifying themselves in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. Because if you think about it, that's where the franchise originated in Minneapolis. It would make sense. They take a team trip and they purify themselves after the year that they just had in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. What could be better than that? Exactly right. A Purple Rain reference. The late, great Prince, one of my favorites of all time, right? And that, to me, is where the Lakers should be in a week.
Okay, they'll be purifying themselves in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. How about the Nets? Where will they be in a week?
They will be trying to become the first team, because of this new play-in format, to come from the 9 or 10 spot and win a championship. And they believe, we talk about a puncher's chance, you're right. I mean, this is like ding, ding, Mike Tyson running across the ring and throwing a haymaker to try to take your head off. That's the firepower that they have. I just think their defense ultimately will derail them. But, man, has there ever been a more interesting team coming from deep, buried, to try to win a championship than the Nets?
Definitely not. Finally, in a week, where will the Sixers be?
Nervously preparing for their first-round opponent. I think it could end up being Toronto, and there could be some issues there because we still don't know if everybody on the Sixers is vaccinated. That's an interesting subplot, but right now they're just not quite there. I think they don't feel like they're on solid footing heading in. Obviously, Embiid is. Their bench is thin, and James Harden right now is not playing well as they hit the most important time of the season.
So he's not as thin as the bench?
That's
Sorry.
correct.
All right, we have much more from Legs as we continue, and we will be back here tonight with great basketball action. We've got a marquee matchup between Giannis and the Bucks and DeMar Derozan and the Bulls. The game is 8 Eastern tonight. We'll have a 1-hour countdown to kick it off. So we'll be with you 7 Eastern tonight for NBA Countdown into a really good game right here on ESPN. Meanwhile, coming up, we had a sneaky big trade in the NFL. Could affect a pair of quarterbacks. We'll tell you why it could be that rare win-win as we roll on. Get up on ESPN.